What I want to talk about in this video is comparing and contrasting MSC Cruises with Holland America. As I make this video, I'm in the Grand Cayman and it is day 5 on the Holland America Eurodam cruise. You know, it was a great deal, it was hard to pass up, and we left from Fort Lauderdale. And because I've been cruising for over 30 years since the 1992, it's inevitable that I have to make these comparisons, at least mentally. And I believe that a lot of cruisers are very loyal to whatever cruise lines. And, you know, to be fair, I was too. For the longest time, I enjoyed Carnival. I mean, they had the best value. It was a fun ship. I was single at the time. So I thought it was a good fit. However, over time, I got tired of Carnival. And I think it attracted a clientele that was just very rowdy. I just wasn't too keen on the Carnival atmosphere anymore. After COVID, we ended up started going on MSC Cruises, and I have to tell you, MSC Cruises was like a breath of fresh air compared to Carnival. Now, I think Carnival offers a decent product and okay service, but I found the MSC Cruises in terms of the value proposition and what they're offering to be very nice. It was classier, I thought. There was a certain amount of rowdiness, but it was nowhere like Carnival. This year would have been my 4th MSC cruise, except through scheduling challenges, it just wasn't possible. We typically take a January cruise, but it didn't work out, so we were forced to postpone it into February, March. But, you know, we spotted this great deal on the Holland America Eurodam cruise. And I have to tell you, it's been a great experience. I'm going to go off the cuff and just tell you some of what I think, some of the amazing things that have really stood out. Number one, these guys, they over-greet you. And I have to tell you, what I'm not used to all this attention, you know, people reaching out, perfect strangers, they're saying hello. And you get a lot of that on Holland America. Not to say that other cruises are friendly, but I definitely think that Holland America, they over-greet you. I mean, it's crazy. And on the Eurodam in particular, there are 2,000 passengers or so, and that's what I was told anyway. And on this particular cruise, and it's filled up, but it doesn't feel like a full ship. I mean, and I said, oh, come on. You guys always say it's a full ship. They said, no, really, we really are a full ship. Now, a full ship doesn't mean it's the capacity. It just simply means that all the cabins are filled. And they did say that, you know, there are a number of cabins where you only had one person in a cabin, whereas the majority of cabins have 2, perhaps 3 or 4 if there's families involved, right? So they overgreet. Another thing that I have noticed that's really, really stood out is you don't have to get beverages out on the Lido lunch deck. In the other cruises, you always had to, they don't give you trays anymore. You got 2 hands and you're trying to have a plate of food and you're trying to get drinks. And if you're trying to get additional food or drink for more than yourself, it ends up being this huge debacle because you're trying, you know, people are just trying to do what they can with 2 hands, right? But, you know, and it took a while for me to learn that you don't need to get your beverages. Even though it's not the dining room, you sit down and they bring the water, they already have the silverware, they will bring you the tea. If you're having breakfast, they have orange juice. I mean, it's just like a wonderful thing. I was like, oh, this is nice. It's like, even though it's a lunch buffet, you help yourself, you're still getting elements of table service. So that stood out. Another thing that has stood out is that there is a feedback system. And what I mean is you have the Holland America app, the Navigator app, and it's not that hard to find. They talk about getting feedback. Now, feedback can mean different things, right? Honestly, my first use of a feedback was to issue a complaint. I didn't want the crew members in the ship management to think that I was just complaining just to complain, right? So there were people I thought that provided outstanding service. And I definitely made it a point to say some really nice things and call out individuals of why they were good and that I thought was a breath of fresh air and quite refreshing. But I will tell you, that feedback system is no BS. I'm telling you, these guys get back to you really quick. And it's not some lower level person. It's generally a member of management. It's like crazy. I made one complaint regarding the game room area, and I don't want to get into the details here, but I was trying to charge my phone. I got lied to by a staff member, and I don't know, it's just, and they were pretty unfriendly I mean, it was during the shift change. So there was this whole debacle. But anyway, one of the managers, pretty high up, the entertainment manager, reached out to us or reached out to me and left a message. I was like, wow, that was really something. Now, it took a couple of attempts, and I finally did get back to her. Now, another incident had to do with the lunch buffet, and and a lot of the food servers, they're not American. Their English isn't so good, right? They generally smile, but their abilities to speak and understand are very limited. They're just there to serve food. Yeah, Holland America, that's also another thing. I don't want to get too far off track, but yeah, you can't really get your own food for the most part. During the hot food, they serve it to you, which is a nice thing. But in any case, back to the feedback, we had an assistant executive chef. He was like number two guy. And one of the restaurant managers come find me at our dinner table. And this was around 7:30, 7:45. We had just arrived for dinner. And they came up to personally apologize and discuss the situation. I just said, hey, look, all I care about is making sure the ingredients for my congee is there. I don't want to have to fight for it, okay? To me, it's pretty self-evident that if it's empty, just fill it up. That's all I need. But I don't know, it just seemed like a crazy complaint, but it was very annoying. Because if you don't call it out, they just kind of don't refill certain things, which I thought was very, very odd. But yeah, so it was amazing. I think yesterday I ended up getting a plate of chocolate-covered strawberries, which was a nice surprise. I mean, it's not what I expected, but hey, we'll go ahead and take it. I can tell you that I think that Holland America, through their Navigator app, the way they handle feedback, complaints, and things like that is very well done. They are very responsive. Now, I do believe there's a bit of a self-serving aspect to it in that they want their guests to give them high marks. They want them to give them high marks on the review after the shift. And I do my very best to be gracious. I mean, I used to work in the hospitality industry when I was very young, so it's a very tough business to be in. And I never wanted to be one of these people to be complain too much. But at the same time, I do believe that there should be some standards. I'm going out of my way with people, but if you're not going to cooperate or you just don't get what I'm trying to say, I'm going to escalate the matter to somebody who actually understands. And so that's the thing. Another thing that's really interesting is their dinner flexibility. Now, I don't think it's unique to Holland America, but again, I'm comparing it to MSC. I can't remember, like if you wanted flexible dining, I'm not sure that you could do it, or at least I wasn't aware of it, that you could have flexible if you wanted the linen and the full service thing. I wasn't sure if that's permitted, but it definitely stood out in Holland America that, hey, if you want your fixed dining, which I prefer, I like the evening later dinner at 7:30, and we just show up at 7:30 every evening, and they're up on the third level on Eurodam, versus if you want flexible dining, that's down on level 2. And I will tell you, in terms of the food, I'm not very fussy when it comes to food, but I do feel that the Holland America food overall is higher quality compared to MSC. And I think part of it is that the MSC cruises we have been on, they tend to be on larger ships. And so what I've noticed is these guys, these waiters and assistant waiters, they've got to haul this food from the kitchen to the individual tables. And I think that the distances for certain dining rooms is pretty far. And whereas on the Eurodam, the kitchen isn't that far. I mean, all the dining areas are concentrated in the back of the ship. So it's not like the dining rooms are scattered all over the place. They're 2 levels in the back of the ship, and that's that. And so when they bring the food out, I have noticed that the food is much fresher, it's hotter, and of course the presentation is beautiful. On the offshoot, I think there's a lot more food control on MSC that was noticeable. Like, I seem to remember on MSC you could order a steak every night. Can't do that here. I mean, you can have steak one night, and we haven't had lobster yet, but I expect that we're going to have a lobster option later on. So what I end up doing is I ended up getting 2 appetizers at least and 2 main courses. It's fine if you want to do small portions, but I just order more food, and it's not a big deal. But in MSC, one of the things is in the later cruises we experience is that If you want a second course, you're gonna have to pay a $5 surcharge. You know, that's a little bit of noise. So it's kind of nice to go back to the old days. But I do notice small things like the portions are smaller. They don't make the expensive items very plentiful. So there's neat, interesting little tricks that they do in the restaurant, which is fine, but the food is very tasty. So I'm willing to overlook it, but I do notice these things. The guest services desk, I mean, I've had a mixed bag with guest services. I hate going to guest services if I have to. I hate calling them. Lots of times they're busy, they don't pick up the phone, and that was one of my complaints. So far, they've been pretty nice about it. Let's see, what else can I think of between MSC and Holland America? Well, okay, so if you want to go on a Holland America cruise or Caribbean cruise, you got to go out of Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Whereas MSC, there's a Port Canaveral option, which is really nice. So I've got 3 days left on the cruise, including today. And so I'm pretty sure I will have more distinctions of how Holland America is better or worse than MSC Cruises. Oh, one thing I do want to slide in is there seems to be much more tenders happening on the Holland America than MSC. I like when we go to port, we don't have to tender. I just like the ship to go up to the pier and we just disembark that way. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.